I recently stumbled across this idea that I think could change everything about cracking open an avoidance emotions. It's called a trust paradox. Sounds strange, right? The concept flips everything that we think we know about trust on its head. It suggests that, actually, before I tell you what it is, let me first show you what it isn't. You clicked on this video likely because you have some interest in helping an avoidant open up. You want to figure out how to make them normal. But here's the thing. You can ask an avoidant to open up, but you can't help them open up. Look, maybe if an avoidant is already tuned to their own feelings and needs, then yeah, maybe that is possible. But here's the catch. Avoidants, especially dismissive ones, are often disconnected from what they feel, so they don't even know what they'd need to express if they wanted to. And here's the kicker. They can't open up about something they don't fully understand or feel. For most of them, learning to access these emotions is a slow, very personal process. I've personally been there, and let me tell you, it's something that I had to do on my own. If anyone would have tried to help me through it or guide me through it, let me tell you, it would have completely backfired. So, yeah, here's the truth. You can't help them. And this leads us to a bit of a touchy issue. You can try to be non-reactive to their distance, and yeah, maybe that works for a while, but think of it like being a plant in a room with a single window. You need sunlight to grow and thrive, but if that light source is always shifting, barely enough one day, blocked the next, eventually you'll start to wither. You'll never get the steady sunlight you need to feel fully alive. So unless you're able to get that sunlight elsewhere from other emotional sources, this whole situation with an avoidant really isn't feasible or sustainable. The reality is you're trying to grow where the light is intermittent. And no matter how much you want it to work, a plant can only go so long without enough light. And here's the thing, knowing this doesn't make it easier either. It's not enough for someone who wants an avoidant to just open up. And something actually kind of dangerous happens when you get caught in an avoidance web. Everyone has their own solar system, right? You're the sun at the center with friends, family, work, hobbies, all your personal world revolving around you. That's how it's supposed to be. But one of the things that I've noticed about people who date avoidants and then kind of get hung up on them, they stop being the sun. Instead of being at the center of their own solar system, they start revolving around the avoidance. They adapt, they orbit their needs, waiting for those brief moments when the avoidant will show just a little warmth. And here's the irony. The more they revolve around them, the more the avoidant pulls away. That avoidant starts to feel crowded, pressured, like they're at the center of something they've never even wanted. And what you really get is resentment both ways. You resent them for not being the light you need, and they resent you for leaving your own solar system to orbit theirs. So what have we learned so far? Well, number one, you can't really help an avoidant to open up. Number two, the avoidant kind of wants to have to do this on their own. And number three, most people adapt by leaving their own solar system. This is what doesn't work. This whole cycle is what 90% of the people who I coach are caught up in. All right, so let's switch gears here for a moment and talk about what actually works. The trust paradox. What the heck is this thing? Well, the trust paradox plays on the psychological principle that the very thing we seek, trust and openness, can't be achieved through traditional methods like asking or trying to help them open up. We just covered that. Instead, we paradoxically need to create a sort of a trust gap where the avoidant feels safe precisely because we aren't trying to enter their emotional space too quickly or directly. But that's only one part of it. You also need to kind of demonstrate an unconditional presence. All right, so what is that? Well, you need to show that you're consistently available and trustworthy without trying to fix, interpret, or push for the connection. And that's the part that everyone gets wrong. By far, the most common attachment pairing I see on my website, Ex-Boyfriend Recovery, is anxious client and avoidant ex. Now, I've talked ad nauseum about avoidance, but anxious individuals are actually kind of interesting. When an anxious individual goes through a breakup, it sort of looks like this. They immediately try to reestablish contact to clear things up. Then they overanalyze every conversation, looking for hidden meanings. Then they reach out repeatedly, hoping to fix what went wrong. They make promises to change, often compromising their own needs. They anxiously monitor their ex's social media, searching for signs of hope. Then they start that whole process over again until usually one of two things happens. They'll either anger the avoidant so much or they'll give up. The truth is that anxious individuals tend to be natural problem solvers, which makes a concept like the trust paradox particularly difficult to employ for them. Specifically, that not trying to push for a connection, interpret it, or fix it part. But what does this actually look like when it's done right? Well, allow me to introduce you to Anita Boyd. 4 years ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing her. So here's the setup. Anita Boyd, a self-described avoidant attachment type, had been used to dating anxious partners. You know the pattern. 1 minute, she's giving them attention, making promises, and the next, she's pulling back, leaving them to question everything. It was like clockwork, constant ups and downs.
Constant questioning. There's this constant up and down, right? There's those promises, and then they're not being kept.
Then something totally unexpected happens. Anita meets a man with a secure attachment style. Here was someone steady, dependable, and genuinely interested in her. He wasn't playing games. He wasn't disappearing on her. And for Anita, this was completely foreign territory.
And so my system essentially was feeling like this is a foreign body. I don't know what this is, right?
Okay.
Like I can't compare it to anything. I had no category for that.
Now, you think someone with an avoidant attachment style would be feeling kind of relieved at this point, right? Well, not exactly. Anita's own instincts told her to push this man away, almost like her mind was saying, this is too unfamiliar, too good to be true.
And then what does the system do when it feels in the unknown? It pushes away, right?
Right. It'll try to purge it, just like
Right.
get it away.
Her partner, however, was secure. He stayed calm, steady, and didn't try to change her reaction. He didn't try to fix her fears or chase her when she pulled away. He just held his ground with quiet confidence. Anita describes this moment where he shows up at a party that she's at, not because he wants to see her, but just because he wants to be at this party.
I was at this party and I was like, why are you here? I didn't invite you. I'm here with my friends. It's Hawaii. Go to other places. Go sailing. Go snorkeling. There's so much to do here. But he was not coming to me. He's not trying to convince me or anything, right?
No, at first she ignores him, pushing him away. And yet he doesn't react. He didn't need her validation or reassurance. He gave her the freedom to move through her emotions on her own terms, letting her find her own way back to him without pressure.
Because he was not trying to convince me. I had my space to move through my emotions. And he actually said later on that he's like, well, I was just like, I just giving you space. I just knew you're moving through your emotions. I'm here. I know you're the one, so I know you're going to get to it at some point. And just this resting confidence. And there's also this sort of like quiet unattachment, right? He was just not attached. And I could feel it. I could feel it. I could feel the space.
And that space that he gave her, it ended up being exactly what she needed. Without any pressure, she finally felt safe enough to process her emotions at her own pace. Instead of clinging tighter, he steps back. He holds his ground and waits for her to reach out when she was ready. And eventually, she does.
If you don't have anything that pushes against us, we come out the other side. Of course we do. We're human beings. We're dynamic human beings. So we move through our emotional cycles. And at the end, we're like, okay, still here. You know what I mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the trust paradox. Again, there are two parts to it. giving space, and being an unconditional presence, which is just a really fancy way of saying being secure. Look at Anita's husband. Oh, did I mention that? They're actually married now. His approach was exactly what she needed, but she didn't know it at the time. I mean, think about it. He didn't try to fill the silence when she pulled away. He didn't panic or chase her down. Instead, he simply held his ground. If she ignored him at a party, he was content just to give her space, let her have time. He didn't try to convince her of his worth or try to push for something more. He was just there.
I was at this party and I was like, why are you here? I didn't invite you. I'm here with my friends. It's Hawaii. Go to other places. Go sailing. Go snorkeling. There's so much to do here. But he was not coming to me. He's not trying to convince me or anything, right?
And this is the magic of the trust paradox. Giving space might sound like detachment, but it's not. It's a confident, grounded presence that says, I'm here no matter what you're feeling. For someone with an avoidant tendency, that freedom and stability is everything. They can retreat, process, even push you away, but the constant presence remains. There's no panic, there's no drama, just the security of someone who isn't moved by every emotional shift. And ultimately, that stability makes them feel safe enough to come back around. Instead of feeling trapped, they feel free to approach without fear.
If you don't have anything that pushes against us, we come out the other side. Of course we do. We're human beings. We're dynamic human beings. So we move through our emotional cycles. And at the end, we're like, okay, still here. You know what I mean?
The trust paradox is about showing strength, not through control, but by giving space. And for someone who fears genuine closeness, that is the key to building trust. But there is a price, a toll that is enacted by the trust paradox. Most people watching this aren't like Anita's husband. They're not effortlessly secure. They're more likely to have anxious tendencies themselves, which makes the trust paradox feel like you're walking a tightrope. For someone who naturally wants closeness, validation, and reassurance, giving an avoidant partner the space they need can feel like fighting against every instinct they have. With this approach, there's a very real struggle to stay true to yourself while also understanding and accommodating an avoidant partner. It's a tough balance to strike. Many will find themselves wrestling with the feeling that they're putting aside their own needs just to keep the peace, to maintain that elusive connection.
And so my system essentially was feeling like this is a foreign body. I don't know what this is, right?
Okay.
Like I can't compare it to anything. I had no category for that.
For someone who's naturally anxious, doing the trust paradox can feel exactly like a foreign body, a foreign experience. It's almost unnatural. It's easy to lose your sense of self in this process, to become so focused on giving space and projecting security that your own needs start taking a back seat. And in the end, you have to ask yourself, can you truly sustain that without losing a part of who you are? Now, I personally believe in second chances. People can grow, heal, and meet us in ways that sometimes we didn't think they were capable of. But when you're dealing with an avoidant partner, you always have to ask yourself one simple question. At what cost? Is it worth the cost of your own identity, of becoming someone you no longer recognize? The solar system analogy we discussed earlier was meant to show you that when you abandon your place at the center of your own life, hoping to fit into someone else's orbit, it rarely works out in your favor. You can't be the sun in their solar system. It doesn't work that way. And you kind of end up eclipsing your own needs by doing that. Waiting for these elusive moments of closeness that come and go unpredictably. So maybe it's not just about giving them space and becoming this idealized, unshakable aspect presence in their life. Maybe it's also about giving yourself the same space and grace, focusing on investing in yourself, pursuing your own goals, your own interests, your own growth, working towards becoming more secure in who you are, because that's something that never goes to waste. And here's the truth. When you do that, when you invest in yourself, that's something that no relationship can ever take away from you. You're building a foundation that's solid with or without that person. So even if things don't go as you'd hoped, even if your avoidant partner never comes around or can't meet you halfway, you still come out of this whole, stronger and more complete than you were before. This is the paradox, after all. By focusing on what makes you happy, by centering yourself, you end up becoming the very person who's capable of sustaining a relationship, whether it's with them or someone better aligned to you. So yes, give space, but give space to yourself too, because ultimately that's an investment you're never going to regret. And it's one that leads you always back to where you were meant to be.